And so what are the legitimate ways in which we can look to make higher claims this year? And one of those is rental property paying interest in advance. So ultimately it means where you pay 12 months in advance, and that allows you to potentially reduce your income during that period. What are some of the benefits or gains we might be able to see as a percentage terms in doing such a thing, Julia?
Well, if you can move your income down below 120,000 this year, and push it up into, but as a result, because you're not going to be able to claim the interest next year, you possibly get up to as high as 135. In that ideal tax bracket, there's a 7% increased refund as a result of those deductions. So if you pay an extra $100 in interest, you get an extra $7 back in your refund off the tax office. Now, I know it's not worth buying an extra ream of paper or something like that, but it is worth it when you're looking at interest payments and super contributions. But you've got to make sure you don't move into the brackets. You've got to look at the whole picture. You've got to do the planning. You've got to talk to your accountant. You've got to say, well, but hang on a minute, I'm going to move myself too far down. And I'm not, it's got to be, you've got to look at those brackets.
Yeah, you've got to find that sweet spot. That's exactly right. And a lot of people who have looked at paying interest in advance in the past, they do get themselves all caught up that eventually it catches up to them. So, good times when you think about this is if you're taking a year off for maternity leave and your income's going to drop significantly. So you could forward book that in terms of that type of thing, because eventually it does catch up. But it's because we're making this tax adjustment down that this year becomes that little bit more interesting in terms of doing those numbers. So that's why it's best to talk to your tax advisor and get some tax advice and do some planning prior to 30 June, because that's when it's going to matter. Now, of course, dealing with a lender who does this type of work, not all lenders will, so that's also a consideration. And they normally need a bit of time to be able to prepare the paperwork for this to also happen as well. So there are a couple of things in there that you need to line up. And so there's not a lot of time for that particular window. I want to move on now to talking about rates, insurances, and body corporates from this sort of point of view. So what do you see happening here in terms of, is there any ability to pay some in advance, or what are some of the technical things we need to look at for here, Julia?
Well, certainly when the year you pay it, you get to claim it as a deduction, even if it's for next year, but you can only pay 12 months in advance. You go over the 12 months in advance and you've got to pro rata it. So imagine if you've already paid your body corporate fees up to 31st of December, you can't pay another year's in advance. You just got to pay 6 months more in advance. And you should be able to find out what they are, because each AGM, they set out the body corporate fees to pay it. But these days with electronics, it's hard, it might go astray.
Yeah, well, it's still an opportunity. Yeah, there's money to be had there. We're talking 2.5 cents up to, in some cases, 5, 6, 7 cents per every dollar. So, we're not talking, it's not going to necessarily send you to the Bahamas for the rest of your life, but this is about, making every dollar work for you. And so they are some of the options. Rates, body corporates, insurances could also be something that you consider, in terms of paying in advance as well. But again, only that 12-month period. Otherwise, it's prorated in terms of what that story looks like.
And then on top of that, like every other year when we think about prepayments, you get the money now off the tax man, you get to keep it for a year too. So it's just that added, that's what makes it the golden year.
Yeah, so and I really like that point. That money could be sitting in your offset account, making you even or saving you even more interest, because again, it's a 12-month period before you potentially have to pay that. So we do like that as a strategy, again, legitimate strategy as part of your tax planning endeavours. Now, what about land tax, Julia? What's the go with land tax? Is there a way in which that could be forward paid, or any opportunity there?
No, the land tax actually applies to the year that you that the bill is for. So it doesn't matter when you pay it, because quite often people get it come back several years later, and you have to go back and amend the return to claim it for the year that it was in. So no gains there, I'm afraid, Ben.
Okay, so but I think that's a really important point. So people are getting excited about one of the other larger bills that we have, which in some cases is land tax. There's no real benefit in doing that. It just aligns to the financial year, and there are adjustments made on that over time. So nothing to see there.